is an interesting thing. Now, we had this happen very recently, and it turned out okay, but it turned out okay with a little bit of a rockiness to it.
Right.
But one thing I got to say is, and what it is, it's a, failing to bring the deposit within the 24-hour period. Okay. Now, in a slow market, that's not such a big deal. In a fast market is a big deal, but we had it just recently. And I got to say this, Alana was on this. This happened over a weekend. Like it was late Friday, Saturday. We were working on this thing throughout a weekend. And Alana, I got to say, she was there for us. You were there for us the whole time, the whole journey. I can't say enough because it got pretty tense. And there was a lot of pissing contests going on between lawyers, right? Not you, but the other lawyer and our agent and stuff like that. Our agent handled it well. I'm not saying our agent didn't handle it well, but a lot of abuse he received. So anyway, go ahead. Let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah, so this is interesting, and I think this is the takeaway from this as always. And I was speaking to Elizabeth about this earlier. Is don't go on autopilot with things in the agreement, and a deposit is one of those. So when you're filling out the agreement, of course, one of the options is to bring your deposit upon acceptance. Upon acceptance is defined as within 24 hours of the offer being accepted. So the clock starts to run as soon as that pen to paper goes down and it's accepted. This has been looked at in case law, and I think we wrote about it in the September newsletter. So if you haven't seen it, please go back and look. The courts have very clearly said that upon acceptance is the 24 hours, and it is strictly enforced. So the failure of the buyer to bring the deposit check and deliver it within the 24 hours is considered a fundamental breach of the agreement. So you bring it at 5 minutes past the 24 hours, you bring it at 27 hours, it's a fundamental breach. So what that means is, and this is a little bit market driven as well, but what that means is if at 5 minutes past the 24 hours, if another buyer appears and makes an offer to purchase the property, the seller is well within their rights, and it's been supported by the case law, well within their rights to accept the other offer and consider the first buyer in breach and the offer terminated. So in the September newsletter, we talk about exactly how this played out and how the courts have dealt with this. And again, market driven, because in a slower market, you maybe won't have an interloping buyer, but in a hot market, you could. So important to know your buyer.
And this wasn't that long ago. This was still during a tepid.
Our case,
our case was during a tepid market and just another buyer. And then, the end of the story was that the first buyer got into competition with the second buyer. They did get the property. And it was all the fault of the buyer that they didn't bring the deposit in, and they understood it, and they said, "Hey, listen, we really want the home," and they competed and they won.
That's right.
That's how. And
This
you
is just a month ago.
Yeah, just a month ago.
Just a month ago. So even in this market, we've been seeing. So I think it's important. And the last thing I want to say on this is just know your buyer. So if you've got a buyer that couldn't bring the deposit check, they're working, someone's about to have a baby, because I always say this, everyone's always about to have a baby or they're pregnant. So I mean, if timing is going to prohibit them from bringing that deposit within the 24 hours and they really want this house, put something else in there.